recording. I really appreciate you doing this because I did. I I completely forgot that before we went on hiatus because of Christine's health. I had OT in the afternoons with Manny, and now it's in the mornings. And so, guys, we're gonna be doing some guest co-hosts on Tuesdays. So yay! And yeah, welcome back to the Daily Cup of Genre. That's 2 days in a row. I'm excited about that. I'm still considering this a bit of a soft launch, but anyways, we are part of the big Genreverse Podcast Network, available wherever you get your podcasts from, and on the Genreverse Podcast YouTube channel, all under the big LRM Online family umbrella. Make sure you're checking out lrmonline.com every day for all of your entertainment news, needs, and opinions. And of course, we're sponsored by Grow Generation. Thank you guys. More from them a little bit later in the episode. I'm Kyle Malone at that Kyle Malone. As you can see, I've marked Manny out because he's not slacking. I'm not gonna lie, it was my fault. But I'm joined by Cam, who co-hosts the Cantina with me. What's up, bud?
Hey, nothing much. I'm all good.
And I did mark Manny's name out, and I put your at LRM_Cam. Yeah, I did. I put a blue mark right through his name, and hastily dropped your name underneath. Yeah, Cam, for those of you that might not watch the Cantina, that's the Star Wars show that we do every week. Are we going back to Fridays, Cam? Are we recording Thursday night, or what's up, man?
I mean, we haven't discussed it, but
Okay.
I guess I don't know.
Yeah, we usually
As long
have
as
it
it's
on
not Friday.
Fridays. Yeah, not Friday recording itself, and that's so we can catch as much news for the week as we possibly can. But I want to kind of talk a little bit about Star Wars first this morning. Obi-Wan Kenobi ended last week, 2 weeks ago. Last week.
Yeah, a week
It'll
ago.
be 2 weeks. Yeah.
Today, kind of thing. When this is a week ago today.
So that's done. You can see our reviews over on the Cantina right here on this channel. But spoilers, be warned, everyone. Sorry, but we're going to talk about it, and I'm not sure what we might spoil on accident, but beware, potential Kenobi spoilers here. And what I really wanted to talk about was the direct. Got to speak with one of the gentlemen that wrote the original movie idea, because this was going to be a movie. It's something that they had talked about, Disney being them, a long time ago, and then when it got changed over to a series, we had heard, as well as others, that allegedly they had taken the movie and just chopped it up into 6 episodes, and that those scripts weren't as great, and that they went into rewrites and stuff like that. And whoop, my browser is not loaded. Let me fix that for you guys. What happened is the writer, where is it at? Beatty is the last name. I just had his first name. I just said Stuart Beatty. There you go.
All right.
Stuart Beatty.
He doesn't actually have a writing credit, I don't think, on the show.
Screenplay, and he got story credits in the thing. Yeah, I was reading up on what he got credit for, and he does get a story by, or one of those like minor story writing credits. So I got my browser up, and he revealed, not only did he reveal that throughout this interview that, yeah, there's bits and pieces of his, he's credited as a writer for episodes 1, 2, and 3, and the finale. He said, yeah, they used parts of my story for this, so that kind of confirms the idea that they took the first movie plan and chopped it up. And then he has this quote about the other plans. Did you know this was going to be a trilogy of movies? Holy crap. Let me reread this, right? So not at all none. And he's talking about if he talking about Solo's performance and things like that. He goes, I wrote the film that they based the show on. So yeah, I spent like a year and a half working on it. And then when the decision was made not to make any more spinoffs spin-off films after Solo came out. I left the project and went on to other things. Joby came on and took my scripts and turned it from 2 hours into 6, so I did not work with them at all. I just got credits for those episodes. And he continues on talking about the trilogy aspect. So when I pitched my Obi-Wan story to Lucasfilm, I said there's actually 3 stories here because there's 3 different evolutions that the character has to make in order to go from Obi-Wan in the prequels to Ben. And the first one was the first movie, which was the show, which was surrender to the will of the Force, transport your will, surrender your will, leave the kid alone. So then the second movie was thinking about where Kenobi ends up. And one of the most powerful and probably the most powerful moment in all of Obi-Wan's story is that moment where he sacrifices himself in A New Hope. Great moment, makes you cry. But if you stop and think about it, it's a pretty sudden thing to just kind of go fighting a guy to see Luke and go, I'm going to die. That to me, that required forethought. That required pre-acceptance. That this was going to happen. So there you go, man. He pitched an idea of 3 stories. He doesn't talk about the third film at all, or at least not that they've given. Talks about the first film, kind of surrender to the Force, and then this idea of figuring out, being willing to sacrifice yourself. So I guess to you, Cam, one, what do you think about the idea of the Kenobi trilogy? Let's start there.
I don't know what to say.
Are you happy it became a show instead? Or how do you feel about those plans?
I don't know what this would have been. Maybe the films would have been better overall. It would have been maybe there would have been a higher budget. Maybe, it would have worked out a lot better. Maybe not. Maybe it would have been a weaker story, and we wouldn't have got maybe some of the riskier but more memorable parts of the show, because I think some of the risks were earned, but our issues were always with some of the execution that I think that was on show. It would have been a different person making it, so different, a different crew ultimately. So it's too hard to say without knowing. And it sounds like they only had a script for the first one and ideas for where it would go after that, that they hadn't kind of got to that stage of, you generally don't, in that situation, other than an idea. So, without seeing that idea to kind of completion, it's really hard to say what it could have been. Would after that one movie, we'd be desperate to see more. I kind of feel like Obi-Wan Kenobi, the show was designed so that they could just leave it there, and that they wouldn't have to do any more if they didn't want to. I think they want to, I think is the thing. Mm-hmm. I think everyone kind of does want to do more, and we've talked about that there's risks.
I don't.
Severe risks involved in that, I know.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about those involved, and
yeah.
I would say it feels like the majority of the fan base was higher on it than lower on it, but people could see some of the flaws in it. I think it's fair to say. So I don't know. Will they use any of those ideas going forward for what they would do for a season 2? I mean, they really don't have to. It doesn't kind of. I mean, knowing that, and then this is spoilers, but you did give a warning that Obi-Wan kind of goes away with the Force Ghost to Qui-Gon at the end. Mm-hmm. That's the next step of his journey. It really just depends whether they have a good story to tell that involves that step of the journey. Now that he can communicate with Qui-Gon, now that he has got past that step. And as we've said before, that can't involve Darth Vader. You can't do it again. That should be now the last time those two, and not Leia again either. No.
Yeah.
So what do you do?
It's weird. It's weird to me because of, like you said, how this first season, or potentially just this series, ends with an open door for more, and at minimum open door for spinoffs. And then to find out that you know, there was at least a trilogy pitched. We don't know if Disney was 100% sold on at the time doing a trilogy or not, but and I do kind of like the kind of confirmation that connects a bunch of dots back to some of the stories about behind the scenes stuff for this a while ago. It is weird to me, and I know you wrote on another statement that, you know, was kind of mentioned that they blame Solo's performance on the reason this movie, and I'm sure even though there's been debates on how far the Boba Fett movie got, whether or not Mangold was ever, you know, more than just a rumor, there was a lot of dependable places talking about him and Boba Fett, despite Kennedy saying no, that was never a thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, Solo screwed things up, man. But I don't know. I don't know if the right hand knows what the left is doing over there in Disney, because you also have Kathleen Kennedy talking about, you know, oh, you can't recast past characters, and yet we know the Lando thing is still allegedly in the works, according to Donald Glover himself. Yeah, Donald. I almost said Danny, and I was like, no, that's Lethal Weapon. And then of course we just had Leia, and you and I have both mentioned that we're at least open to the idea of like Agent Leia in a Rebels era, you know, series.
I could watch. I mean, I think watching them as kids is different from a recast anyway.
I do agree.
So I could watch a Leia show focused on her like teenage years, you know what I mean? But no Obi-Wan, please. Do you know what I mean? No Vader, you know. No Vader could be theoretically in the background at some point or in a scene, but, you know, they clearly know who each other are. It's not even a question, but, you know, there shouldn't be any connection really between them at all. But, you know, sure, I mean, it'd be great to see, for example, because she does end up becoming a senator, and in Star Wars Galaxy, people become senators really, really young. I'd love to see her in the Senate against Palpatine, like actually speaking in the Senate after 10, 12 years of him being the Emperor, you know, stuff like that. You know, there is actually interesting stories to tell there.
A political drama set in the Imperial Senate.
No, I mean, in some ways you could do that, but that would just be your background sort of canvas. Your foreground could be a mystery story. It could be a heist. It could be a, you know what I mean. You could picture it could be a spy thing. You know, getting information and Leia being involved in that and playing her part.
Look at how well. Sorry.
Being the face though of being a senator, you know, officially, you know, and saying the right things and being supposedly pro-empire officially and all that sort of stuff, you know, being duplicitous.
Yeah, and you and I have always talked about, you know, one of the most interesting things in Star Wars is the politics, and that's separate from people when they go, don't make Star Wars political. That's talking modern contemporary issues in Star Wars. I'm talking in-universe politics.
We're not talking about the West Wing here or something like that, you know. I
was going to say, look at how well Battlestar blended the politics with everything else, you know. So I could see something similar to that.
Star Trek's always done it many times, you know. All you have to do is have you know, at the end of the day, there'll be politics in any galaxy anywhere, because people are always going to have different opinions, and that's ultimately what's going on in Star Wars. And that can be interesting because the policies and the politics defines the world around it. It's just it wasn't handled very well in the prequels, and people then have associated all politics, Star Wars equals bad. In some ways, to the detriment, I would say, of the sequels, because actually we could have done well a little bit more. Nothing made sense in the sequels.
Nothing made sense.
So there is a story to tell you. My only caveat would be it can't be someone. I mean, it might be worth waiting a few years and then getting the young actress. I think it's Vivian Lee Blair. I think her name is that played her in Kenobi, to play her again. because I think if you push it too close to Leia's age, then we just notice that it's not the same person, kind of thing. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Vivian.
I mean,
Lyra
I think
Blair.
perfect
Anyways,
would have been if you could have took Millie Bobby Brown a few years ago and made a show like that. She would have looked absolutely and been perfect in it, because we know it's a good. But I think she's now too close to the age that Leia was in A New Hope.
Yeah.
You know, physically now to kind of pull that off anymore. I think that ship's kind of sailed. So maybe waiting a couple of years and doing something like that with that young actress, and that would work. Yeah, I would watch that. So that, I mean, that's one spin-off idea. You'd imagine we'll hear more of Reva at some point. I don't know. I'm not saying she would get her own show, but her story is going to continue somewhere at some point, I'm sure. And then, you know, there's been a lot of talk, and, you know, it seems like a shoe-in for Disney is to do a Darth Vader-based show, you know, something focused on Vader himself, because he is the biggest selling character in Star Wars. And everyone who's ever get into Star Wars would watch a Darth Vader-based show, especially if it is Darth, you know, dealing with, again, there could be a political element to it, although that would be the kind of shit that just annoys Vader's, that's the stuff. Yeah, I'll leave that to the Emperor. But, you know, what we talked about, like Shadows of the Empire, and it, in my opinion, I don't know if you agree with this, is the best part of Shadows of the Empire is the stuff with Vader and Shizor or Sizor or whatever it is, and the whole kind of political wrangling to get in and be the Emperor's number two and kind of displace Vader, and Vader having to be sneaky about, you know, about how to, before he could confront him and stuff, you know.
That's like the first Vader comic books from Kieran Gillen, almost like what's her name?
Adam Gillen.
Yeah, almost like Karen, but this is a very Gaelic name that I am butchering. But he's his first run introduced Dr. Aphra and showed, you know, all of the like shit Vader had going on behind the Emperor's back. I dug all of that. I could deal with a Vader spinoff if it was Vader and had nothing to do with Obi-Wan, and
as long as it's if it's not him obsessed by Obi-Wan, you know, I feel like that's the next part of his story. You know, if you think about it, if you were even setting after that thing with a Vader show is you don't have to set it at any particular part of the timeline. You can pick anywhere from the end of Revenge of the Sith right through to the end of Return of the Jedi to do a Vader show. You know, you're really not restricted in that way. And actually, there's probably less been told of what he was up to during the original trilogy than there has been between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, because the comics and some of the books have covered all that. So, but the point is, there's fertile ground to choose from, and it could be a really kind of interesting dynamic to kind of focus on the bad guy for once, because
I think there's some space between 4 and 5 for a lot of storytelling.
I think so as well. We haven't had a lot of that, and I think that would be a perfect place. I would move the Shadows of the Empire type story to not have the Luke and Han thing all going on, because that's been covered elsewhere in comics now. The War of the Bounty Hunters covers all that, and Vader's involved in that as well. So I kind of feel like that part isn't needed anymore. What we need is the Vader versus a rival for and the Emperor mixed in together. That could really kind of work as a very, very fun show. I mean, whether people would watch it without having a hero character, but kind of Vader is almost like your hero character in this, because even though he's a bad, it's like we talked about the Sopranos and stuff like that. You know, nobody's saying Tony Soprano is a good guy, and all right, Vader's not as likable as sometimes those mafia guys can be, but the point is we would still follow his story, and there could be other people round about him, you know, the minions that he uses that are kind of closest to him, but he would sacrifice in a second, you know. So I think there is a story, and you could even have some good people in it. I know, doing something in the background, some new characters, but I really don't feel the need for that. But so there is a lot of spin-off ideas. I just wouldn't want to see an Obi-Wan Kenobi season 2 that's Vader's back and it's rematch number 4. You know,
Oh,
and
man.
Leia's in trouble again. You know,
Yeah.
Vader's got her again this week. Out will Obi-Wan save her? Tune in and find out.
That was kind of the
that.
Yeah, that was kind of the thing I think I started this segment on with mentioning Solo, was that Disney, I don't think they even understand why Solo didn't do well. And I don't think everyone that's like, oh, because of The Last Jedi, part maybe people being kind of like bummed on it. Number 2, definitely releasing, you know, another movie so soon, but mostly, guys, it's a boring story that just did a bunch of check marks. How did Solo get a gun? How did Solo get his name? How did Solo get the Falcon? How does Solo do the Kessel Run in a measurement of
there's an interesting idea in there, but it's burdened with too much tick boxes for me, and it should have just been allowed the story to grow on its own. And they keep
blaming stuff on it and saying that caused you know these current changes and
it didn't help
and all that.
They had to basically cancel the movie halfway through, hire a new director. That cost them a fortune. Yeah. That's one of the reasons why it's not profitable. It's not as if it didn't make money. It just didn't make its money back, which is the first time as that's ever happened in a Star Wars movie.
Yeah, just like the sequel trilogy
it's probably made its money back now by the time you
second to third
factor things in, but at the time it was seen as a flop for sure.
Yeah. Anyways, we're going to take a quick word from our sponsors over at Grow Generation. Come back and talk some Lord of the Rings.
Grow Generation, where the pros go to grow. From propagation to harvest, they have everything you need for your special garden. Grow Generation serves customers across the nation and carries a wide inventory of renowned cultivation brands. Go to www.growgeneration.com, where the pros go to grow.
Thank you, Grow Generation, for sponsoring the episode. Link in the description box. So away from science fantasy and on to just straight fantasy, something Cam is a huge fan of, more so than myself. But I do like it well enough, and we will be doing another Dragon Reviewed podcast season with Wheel of Time season 2 when that hits. Do you know when that's hitting off the top of your head?
We don't have a solid date for it yet. But it's definitely obviously after Rings of Power and everything. But does it make the tail end of this year, or is it the start of next year? It feels like one of those kind of situations. It's in post at the moment.
Be subscribed to the YouTube channel or follow your favorite podcast app, and you'll know when the episodes hit. And lrmonline.com. So I've got it up on the screen right now. Cam wrote a piece up on some official images shared via the Fellowship of Fans Twitter. And then a leak related to some story stuff. So the images, we've got the dude that makes the rings. How do you pronounce his name again?
Celebrimbor.
There you go. I knew he makes rings. Some images of Elrond, and that's pretty much it, man. We've got some elves. What are you feeling about the look? And I know last week I think we got a look at some orcs, but how are you feeling about the aesthetics here, man?
I mean, it looks really good so far. That's the one thing I'll give it. I mean, I think the trailer, everything looks so far good, but of course they're choosing which parts to show us at the moment, so they can be selective with that. Even where I think there was some criticism of some of the CGI earlier on for like the snow troll that you see kind of in the trailer, they've kind of updated that. So most recently that looks better than it did the first time. So, you know, I think they are kind of spending a lot of money on this. We know how much money is getting spent like per episode. So I think looks-wise, aesthetically, they've kind of nailed it so far. But we need to see, you know, sometimes it's how you shoot it. So does it feel like you're in this big place that's got, you know, Game of Thrones always felt like you were in a world and you were jumping from one side to another, and they had the different, you know, feeling of being on the east or different feeling of being in the west or up the north, because the environments were all different as well. Is it going to be like that, or is it going to feel small scale? And that's what we can't judge until we see it. But so far so good, I would say 100%.
Yeah, I'm nervous about this series.
You should be.
Only because just that there's so much. It feels like they got a lot of wiggle room, but it's kind of like Kenobi, where again they're bumping up against things that they don't shouldn't necessarily be bumping up against. You know,
Well,
certain characters, certain places, certain events.
well, the
I
one
don't
thing
know.
that's going to be hard for me to get by is, and I'm going to have to accept this or not enjoy it, is the fact that they've condensed the timeline into such a short period of time. You know, the second age is, 3,441 years long, I think, from start to finish. And we're getting most of the important events of that seem to be cramped into a kind of few years, I'm guessing, you know, timeline. And it doesn't feel like enough time to kind of have all that play out across what we're told is 5 seasons. That's what we've kind of been told. The plan is to kind of go for 5 seasons.
I'll believe that if it happens, when it happens.
I don't know, think of the money they've spent on the rights. So unless it's an absolute flop, and it won't be, I don't think, a flop enough to not get people still tuning in to see it because of the name.
At least 2, maybe 3, but 5? I don't know.
They need to make their money back somehow. It depends. If it's doing well, they'll absolutely do 5, maybe even more. You know.
The other thing that kind of feeds into that fear, and I think part of it plays into the timeline that you're speaking of, because it's Hobbits, and I know that one of the big things about Frodo and Bilbo was how odd of Hobbits they are, having the big adventures and things like that. And I also, the way I understand is their influence in Middle Earth is, you know, not as broad back in this time frame that we're going to be talking about, and yet we're going to be getting some adventurous, happy,
it's a tricky situation. They're not hobbits. I don't think they'll use that name in any way whatsoever. I think they're going to be called Harfoots, which are an ancestor, if you like, of the hobbits, but they'll be small, probably with furry feet. So characteristically, they might not be the same. It seems like they're traveling from one place to another, and that would present a completely different lifestyle to the one that we're used to seeing hobbits in.
Right.
Like, from what I've seen, they look as if they're wearing traveling clothes, whereas hobbits are very creature comfort, you know, that we see them when they're in the Shire, but they've been there by that point and kept safe for hundreds and hundreds of years, you know, at that point that we meet them in Lord of the Rings, and it's only by the kind of rangers that have been keeping them safe that long. That's not going to be the case for these people, but the whole kind of Middle Earth seems to be in a relative time of peace at the start of this show, and then some bad shit's going to happen and start fucking things up. And you know, how will that affect the hobbits? I don't know, or the kind of Harfoots, if you like. It is interesting because I think what they can't do is have them be too pivotal to anything big that the elves would have written about. So, you know, what we understand from this history is kind of, if you imagine, it's Bilbo and Frodo and people reading the histories when they're in Rivendell and then kind of writing about it. That's the way you've got to think about it. So all these histories are written from the elvish point of view, really, in the second age, rather than the kind of the men's point of view, and then the later kind of descendants of Gondor. So it's absolutely possible for hobbits to have turned up and just the people who were recording the histories didn't write anything about them because there was nothing notable to write about them at that time.
Yeah.
The only
which is kind of what I was,
tricky aspect I would have is if Sauron is aware of them, right? Now, I don't know where Sauron's going to come in the show, but, you know, he's going to come in eventually, that's for sure. And I think that's being kept very, very under wraps in terms of how they're going to introduce him and when and where. But Sauron really was someone who wasn't familiar with hobbits in the Lord of the Rings. He kind of dismissed them as not being important at all. And it was only really when Gollum says, you know, the name Baggins and Shire to him when he's tortured, that he starts thinking about hobbits for the kind of first time. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that he didn't know they existed, right? Let's be clear about that. There's nothing that I don't think that explicitly states he didn't know they exist, just that he never factored them into his plans whatsoever.
Yeah.
So if they were like a foil to him earlier on, that wouldn't work with that,
Yeah.
But I'm not saying that he can't be aware of them at all, but it's tricky ground to
probably looked at him as kind of like we look at rabbits. It's like, yeah, they exist. Sure, they eat vegetation, but whatever.
yeah, because, you've got to think of how Sauron views mortals, us men, as really kind of being quite weak and should be controlled by someone like him, because we're too silly to get by without someone like him telling us how things work. So that's where his mindset's kind of at. And the elves are kind of waning even back in this age, but they're much bigger than they were in the third age, but bigger societies. But Sauron's got to think about them as well, because they could be a threat to him as well. So it's a complicated situation that he's in at this time.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens. What's this Numenorian armed forces? This
I take it you don't know what
leak?
Numenor is, do you? Yeah,
it's not ringing a bell. It's not ringing a bell.
You'll find out in the show, I guess, because they'll explain it. But see, the people who are Gondor, like Aragorn's people, right? All his ancestry, that was all important, right? Mm-hmm. That's where it comes from. It's Numenor. They're all from Numenor originally. They were kind of try to think of it as like after the first age and everything, the loyal houses that fought against Morgoth in the first age were kind of like rewarded, right? And they were given this land that was basically just raised up, and it was in between Middle Earth and the Undying Lands in the west, and they got this island called Numenor. It was a star shape, and and Elrond's brother Elros they had the choice whether to be elf or man. Elros chose to be a man, and he became the first king in Numenor, and he still lived like 300 odd years, but he did die eventually, whereas Elrond, as obviously we see in this show, doesn't really age because he chose to be an elf, and that's where that kind of lineage all comes from, in the Numenorians. And they're really, at this time in the Second Age, they are by far the most powerful military force. Far bigger than and more powerful than anything that we see even in the Third Age in any of the Lord of the Rings stuff at this point, because they've kind of had the freedom to just do their own thing for a long time. So
speaking of the military,
apparently, the big key points are that apparently the military will be split 50-50 between men and women, which, I mean, whether it's specifically 50-50, I don't know, but the general kind of idea here is that there's going to be a lot of women soldiers as well. Not women extras playing men just to fill up numbers, because that's happened in many movies and shows
identifiably before. Female warriors.
Yeah. Which, that's obviously going to annoy some people, right? That's clearly going to annoy some people. And I don't think Tolkien would have ever imagined the Numenorian being like that. However, they are a more advanced sort of civilization from anything else in Middle-earth. And, I'm kind of okay with it as long as these are highly skilled warriors that chose that life. It's not just like, oh, well, half of you, are conscripted to go into the, army here or something like that. That kind of doesn't make much sense. But we'll have to see how it goes. Obviously, in the show.
Yeah.
The other thing they said was that, that they will be wearing fish scale armour with kind of like white horse tails coming off their helmets. That's what they would look like. And they're excited to go off to war because they're like overconfident. They're like, we've been sitting here twiddling our thumbs for hundreds of years. So, this is like exciting to go off and help people. And there's like a parade seeing them all off and fanfare and all that sort of stuff. And I assume at some point, when in the show, how that'll work, I don't know. Whether it's like a lead into season 2, we're going to see that Numenor and kind of fleet head off to Middle Earth for whatever reason. We don't know what the threat is and what's going on yet or anything, but ultimately it's going to be Sauron in the end, but we don't know how that works within the show itself. So that's the kind of leaks are all around about
that. It's one because I'm not familiar with the history, and while I'm familiar with Tolkien and the time and of writing and the just kind of like the general history of fantasy, the genre and whatnot, like I get the inspirations, and 100% you would expect in these types of worlds the militaries to be mostly male, with female leaders being this rarity. So in that context, I would have never, had you not said anything, never batted an eye at it. However, I always do kind of think to myself about, especially when something's made in modern days and you've got a very blended military, and I love it when people point out to a few odds and rare occasions where you had larger female military units or groups of females in a military action in the past, but it is one of those things in this type of setting that makes you go and makes you wonder what's the story decisions here. But in general, because it's fantasy, it's not like you're trying to make half the 101st Airborne Division of World War II female or something, because it's nothing like that.
No, but it's like it's also like if you were watching Braveheart and there was a lot of women, then
you would question the hell out of it.
Because that's just not the way
fantasy,
it works. But it's not history; it is a made-up history.
Exactly.
But
even though it's got real world inspiration,
for example, the ancestors of the Rohirrim. You wouldn't expect women warriors in the Rohirrim, because look at the customs that we see of theirs within the Lord of the Rings, where Éowyn is not allowed to kind of go and be a warrior. She has to hide herself. I mean, I know she's got a death wish, so it's kind of slightly different, so maybe throwing herself away, but it's like, they probably do have women warriors, but they're not going to be in a large number, because mostly women wouldn't pick that lifestyle or job choice to go into. Exactly. Sorry, but we're talking back in
the present, if you will, Lord of the Rings day, those books, days, where all the history is about, this dude, that dude, this other dude, not a lot of, hers and she's, as far as like their legends and myths and things like that. So like I said, in the grander context, I get why people might be concerned, might question.
I mean,
but in my context, just
female gender characters within Lord of the Rings. I mean,
Galadriel, but not like military act.
Galadriel was a warrior at some point, but not as a. It's not like there's an Amazon type unit that's all female.
That's
or something
what I'm
like
trying
that,
to. Yeah. So, like I said, in that bigger picture, I can get why some people would be concerned. But me personally, like I said, if we had never had this conversation, I probably would have watched it and never thought anything of it. But yeah, I can see where there could be some concerns there.
I mean, I'm not concerned again because it's the Numenorians, and I think it's being quite mysterious and different from it and more advanced than everyone else. Plus, they should be a bit more powerful. They tend to be bigger, hardier, stronger, better fighters than the kind of regular Joes that are left in Middle Earth, because they've had this kind of privileged life and privileged bloodline and all that sort of stuff. So they're like Aragorn, they're all kind of Aragorns, if you like, what I mean, back in those days, or even, because always in the past people were more powerful in Tolkien's universe, so they should be even stronger than Aragorn was, so having, Ranger and Warrior female characters absolutely doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah.
But what I wouldn't want to see is, like, then if there's another army of Middle Earthers shows up, later on, a more rustic army, that they're all half female as well, because that suddenly wouldn't make sense to me. If that's just where I'm coming from.
No, yeah, I get it. Completely get it. We'll wait and see. Maybe we'll talk about doing some Lord of the Ring reviews, maybe here on the Daily COG or something. You guys let us know in the comments what you would like from LRM and the Genreverse related to that. We'll go ahead and wrap it up, guys. If you're watching us on the YouTube channel, please hit the red subscribe button. We got a lot of great shows here. Anime-Versal Reviews. We'll be reviewing Classroom of the Elite, and then picking something else for the summer until we get to Chainsaw Man. We've got Marvel Multiverse Mayhem, which does Marvel reviews and then news whenever there's nothing to review, or we're supposed to, Nick. We're doing some Miss Marvel right now, the Cantina. I talked about that. You guys can catch that on here, as well as Breaking Geek Radio and Genre Shot trailer reactions. All of the podcasts, not the reactions, because who would just want to listen to me react to a trailer, but all of the podcasts do go up on your favorite podcast app, so Spotify, SoundCloud, Google, all of those things, even the one with the fruit. Yeah, Apple. Anyways, LRMonline.com every day for all of your entertainment news, needs, and opinions. We got covering leaks and rumors to giving opinions on news throughout Hollywood, press releases, anime, video games, comics. If it's geeky pop culture, we're covering it. All celebrity interviews also available on the LRM online YouTube channel. So yeah, Cam, anything else you want to throw out there?
I think so.
Talk about the writing thing. I'll bring up the writers wanted on the screen.
Yeah, we are looking for people to get involved. We're trying to grow the team here at lrmonline.com and the Genreverse Podcast Network. We find it easier to find people that want to do podcasts, that want to do writing these days. I guess that's the way of the modern world. So, my main kind of task in LRM is writing, and that's my passion. I love writing. So if you're like me and you really like writing about stuff and getting your opinions out there, or writing about the stories and being able to say what you think, or you're a geek of something that we're not covering enough of, and you think we should be covering it, then reach out to us. And Kel's got the details on screen at the moment. For anyone that's listening just on a podcast, you can contact me at LRM_Cam. That's a place to start. You can contact at LRM. Is it as Shoki's the same? It'll be
Michael at LRM Online.
Right. You can contact him. You can contact the main LRM email address as well. You can just reach out to us wherever you can find us. Grab us on Twitter. Jump over to our Discord. Whatever. If you're interested, let us know. We'll go through the process with you. We'll let you know how it works, and we'll try to grow the team, and we think we can help you achieve what you want to do, which is kind of write about your passion subjects.
Yep. Build a portfolio for the future. All right, guys. All of the social media information's down below. Thank you so much. Hopefully we'll make it 3 days in a row. Manny should be back with me tomorrow, and we'll see you next time.